is ongoing. There's been a lot of great things that have been said here this evening. I followed Scott Levedo for many, many years and absolutely love his fearless spirit and what he does. I hope you get your Turning Point USA chapter, Massimo, but I think you can do bigger than that. Then you should run for office. I definitely voted for that guy who was running for governor. Yeah, he's not my vote. Sorry, I don't live here. And the Donald DJT Trump Club, you don't need the Republican Party's permission. You know. So one of the things I usually say when I get invited to Republican events right at the beginning, I didn't need to say it tonight because I had a feeling there weren't any here, but I usually open with all the rhinos in the room are welcome to leave. We don't want you anywhere. Yeah. So it probably doesn't surprise you that they never invite me back, but that's okay. I'm not trying to win a popularity contest. My job is to tell the truth. And the great thing about the truth is that it never changes. And there's only one. Not your truth and my truth. I hate to tell you that's bullshit, okay? That's not happening. There's one truth. How we feel about it can be defined by who we are and where we grew up and all the things that happen to us. But that's perception. That's not the truth itself. So our refuge is the truth. And one of the ways that we get to the truth is that journalists are supposed to be students, not experts. We're not supposed to be trotted down on the television and celebrated as some great expert. That's not our job. Our job is to be a student of everything. Because in being a student, you learn the context. And so I wonder how many of you in this room know what Bill de Blasio's real name is. Wilhelm Werner Jr. Yes, that's his name. He said he changed it because he was abused by his father, which I don't want to be cynical, but that's a kind of nice way of making sure no one questions you. It might be true, probably not, but it might be. So why is that relevant? Well, anybody ever wonder how Tom Steyer managed to make millions or billions of dollars? Because when the man opens his mouth, he is dumber than a bag of rocks. Okay? So you gotta wonder, how do you have people like Bloomberg and Steyer? They're not impressive. And if you run your own business, or even if you have a great job, it's kind of hard to make billions of dollars. So how did all these people get this money? Maybe they were selected, and that money was given to them, and that business was given to them because they were chosen by people who really run things behind the scenes. When you look a little bit closer, what you find out is that Tom Steyer's uncle was a famous footballer for the Nazis. And look a little bit closer to it, John Kerry, what you might find is that John Kerry's family, who were based in Austria at the Villa Kerry, provided the safe house for the Nazis that were fleeing to Argentina and other parts of Latin America. Why don't we know that history? Why is it relevant? Because these are the people that keep accusing Donald Trump of being a Nazi. Who are the real Nazis? The actual Nazis. And I ask you this because there's two things you may not know. One of them is that a young lawyer from the Simon Wiesenthal Center was working in Nuremberg during the Nuremberg trials. And there was an SS leader from Eastern Europe, one of the worst. And he was one of the 49 people executed after the Nuremberg trials. I want to say to you, 6 million dead, probably more. And that's only counting the Jewish people, not all the German people and all the Russian people and so on, all the gypsies. And only 49 people were responsible? I don't think so. So this young lawyer goes to visit this SS leader in his cell after he's been convicted and he's going to the gallows. And you know what he said to him? According to the attorney, he said, the Jews in New York will pay for this. And now look who's running New York today. They're going to make the Jews in New York pay. And who is they? They is not the Nazis on their own. It's not the Islamists on their own. It's an alliance that predates this election by many, many years. Right before the Second World War, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, who was an Arab Muslim man, was brought by the Nazis to Berlin, and he was made an honorary Nazi. Hitler sent his emissaries all over Latin America and also all over the Islamic world, and they were always allied. The leftist Islamist alliance with the globalists. So I call that the red being the Marxists, the green of the Islamists, and the blue of the globalists. And I don't mean, ordinary, decent people. I'm talking about political factions that use religion, for example, as a cover for an agenda which is very clearly, in their own words, to install Sharia law throughout the world and restore the caliphate. When you say something like that in public, you get attacked in the media. Who controls the media? It's not the American Council for Islamic Relations. It's not the Muslim Brotherhood. It's the leftists. It's the globalists who control the media. Every single day, what you see around you is that alliance laid out. Do you know what Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, who was the leader of ISIS, he was a prisoner in a camp in Iraq that I was familiar with called Camp Buka. And when he was released, on his way out the camp, he said to one of the guards, "I'll see you in New York." Now he never made it to New York, but ISIS did. And where we are today is we have, this alliance is now allied with, for example, the cartels. One of the reasons it was so important for President Trump to declare the cartels as terrorist organizations is not just because it brings to bear the authority of the United States military, the Department of Defense. You move jurisdiction away from law enforcement into the realm of counterterrorism and the military, which gives them extraordinary powers to act with speed. You need speed to go against these organizations because why? Because, for example, Cartel de los Soles, which is Cartel of the Suns, in Venezuela, military generals do not have stars, they have suns. And the cartel that runs Venezuela, for whom Maduro worked, the President Maduro worked for Cartel de los Soles, so did the Vice President Delcy Rodriguez, so did her brother Jorge, so did Diosdado, who was in charge of intelligence. They're all members of the cartel. The IRGC runs, that's the cartel that runs Iran. The Ayatollah never ran Iran. He also worked for the cartel. And that cartel and Venezuela's cartels work together. Why is that so important? Because Cartel de los Soles was built out of 3 military generals who came together to form that cartel. Venezuela was never a narco nation. That was Mexico's and Colombia's title. Venezuela was a petro nation. And how did that change, and when did it change? We got blindsided by those strikes on the boats. Nobody really understood what it was about because your media has failed you and your leaders have failed you. But what it was really about was when Hugo Chavez was elected in, I think, 98, 99, he came to power promising to share the wealth of Venezuela with the people. That was a lie. Like all communists and Marxists, that was a lie. And so what he did was he impoverished the nation, reduced the population to 80 to 90% of the population lived below the poverty line, going through the trash to find food. 80 to 90% of the population, while his daughter was the richest woman and is still today the richest woman in Venezuela. So Chavez was in an election here, in a referendum, and he was going to lose, 2004. So the Cubans, with whom he's very close, Cuban intelligence, very sophisticated, one of the best in the world, they had figured out a way how to rig the lottery machines. And they said to Chavez, we applied that to voting machines. We can help you win this referendum. The people of Venezuela rioted when Chavez took that referendum because they knew it was a lie. But there was nothing they could do. And there was born Smartmatic. Smartmatic is the company that pioneered the voting systems that then became, they're across, Johnny Smith can tell you this, It's the same software, it's the same systems across ESNS, Heart Intercivic, Dominion voting systems, Smartmatic, it doesn't matter. There's a lot of, I won't go into the details, but they opened an office in Boca Raton in Florida. And as they began to buy out all the software, the Treasury Department took notice and put an investigation on them. They eventually sold the company for $1 just to obfuscate and create layers. The point is, Venezuela today decides the results in elections in 72 countries. So if you thought it was just about the fentanyl, it was never just about the fentanyl. What it was about is that at the same time that Hugo Chavez had realized he had an invincible hold on power, George Bush went into Iraq and sent oil prices through the roof. And Plan Colombia, which was the 7th Group Special Forces operation in Colombia, decimated Pablo Escobar and the FARC and the drug situation in Colombia. So the Colombians and the Cubans came to the Venezuelans and said, can you run the drugs for us? And they said, sure. With the oil price through the roof and the money they were making from drugs, they amassed a fortune of $2.7 trillion in liquid assets. That is where the money comes from to steal your elections. That is where the money comes from to finance the protests. Yes, the CCP is heavily involved. I said to someone, half of Congress is on their payroll, and they said to me closer to 80%. It's not just the CCP that Congress is taking bribes and money from. There's the oil companies like Chevron operating in Venezuela. The point is to tell you that when you see Trump under attack for these things, there is a much greater strategy that is at play. By taking out Venezuela, you probably don't know that they removed the ability of Iran to mine uranium. Did you not wonder where Iran was getting its enriched uranium from? They were getting it from Venezuela. They have bases in Venezuela that Venezuelan people are not allowed to enter. So what you did by taking somewhat control of the situation in Venezuela, that's not yet done. Because Delcy Rodriguez, the vice president, became the president, and she's still cartel. She's also a CIA asset. And that's the other part of it. That all of these people who are enemies of the United States are working together. Their greatest ally are their enemies within this country. Their greatest allies. So what happens is when Trump says he's going to go into Venezuela and he's going to decimate the cartel, they've been in bed with the CIA for so long, that agency knows they cannot afford to let that go. Number one, they don't want it coming out. Number two, there's 4 sites in Venezuela where they stored all the information about stealing the 2020 election and all the other elections they've stolen. They don't want that getting out. They also don't want to lose the revenue that comes with it. So what do? They say, Mr. President, oh, Mr. President, yes, you must take out Maduro. He is a bad man. It's a 12-year indictment. 12 years it took to put that indictment together on Maduro. He's a murderous son of a bitch. And he's driven 8 million of his people out of his own country. The Helicoid is one of 2 torture centers in Venezuela that are the largest torture centers in the Western Hemisphere. He took a shopping mall complex and turned it into a place of rape and prolonged torture and murder. And Delcy Rodriguez personally likes to go down and oversee some of those interrogations. So she's not the person you want. But when they took control of some of what Venezuela is doing, they shut down Iran's operations and they put Cuba on notice because Cuba gets all of its oil from Venezuela. And they're not going to hold out for too long, depending on who you talk to. So these are moves on a chessboard that Trump is dealing with that only covers one aspect of this. Because it's believed, if you think about the cartels, under Joe Biden, almost 20 million people came into this country illegally, including more than 300,000 armed, uniformed, and trained members of the People's Liberation Army of China. Who do you think is the army of the deep state? It's the IRGC operatives, it's the cartels, and it is the terrorists and hackers and special operations forces and all these people that have been let in under the last administration's open borders policy. And what are they here for? Well, Trump is shutting down Iran right now, as we speak. As we speak, it's happening. There may be ongoing operations in Venezuela. After this, we'll see. But what I can tell you that I know is that when they were stopping those ships, remember when they were stopping the Venezuelan oil ships? It is my understanding, and this is not for public record because I have it from one source,